Whole species value nature system. So I'm not a doctor. I'm just an expert on the nature of English grammar, correlation nature. I'll show you how you can see, discern how the Trinity is also within as an identity of value before, as, and beyond itself. And so what is existence? Existence is an identity of value progression. Inherently, simultaneously, actively, in other words, inherently, actively, and progressively. That's the Trinity's nature, body of value is discernibly in here. So not only is this the identity of the four directions, but it's three natures that have a relationship to themselves as positive onto the identity of space, as more consciousness, as more nature as our identity made here and kept here, or is more of it pushed away. Lethe of Hades. Poverty and things like this are manifest so we could have spoken to us the pain of it, but we don't have free speech because we have an organized crime method that each modern nation was taken to collusion with. Again, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal, I'm not a lawyer. Common sense shows correlation nature was a value nature relationship to itself as a body of evidence that was sabotaged since before our founders. With each modern nation, this can't be blamed against England because it was already before all modern nations. In other words, each spot of fact treatment nature, individually, grouped together, progressively. In other words, top down, the leaders' voices maintained to fact treatment nature, even forced glorifications of states and areas originally and progressed within as a nature of value nature relationship to as negotiated shared pseudo identity, whereas identity of value progression is the course in demonstration to every single person as the only same course everywhere. This is smaller than small, greater than great in demonstration to us through science. How to cause evolution too. The ancients knew this. This is what the ancients know people are used to show. And English was revealed to teach this. This is why the letters are drawn the way they are. These sounds are not just sounds manifest as value because those, in other words, this is a nature has a value nature relationship to itself as an identity before, then as all finite, active, and progressive values. Every value has an attached identity relationship to itself. So it has needs to keep the campus Marcius of a correlation nature that is extending the Republic's means of our united strength, might, and prayer to counter prayers upon us. Pray. May keeping us as prey of tactically ulterior from space nature's actual identity of value, progression, value discernment system, which is by and as the value of the identity of space. Allah revealed to teach this with English, distinctly and non-distinctly. Alpha and Omega, distinctly and non-distinctly, because Alpha and Omega is about polarity nature. Connected to what both polarities are as themselves, simultaneously, distinctly and non-distinctly, in relationship to the body of value they are, greater than individual themselves, This is the value progression. This is a relationship that our nature has to its own nature, inherently, actively, and progressively, as a Trinity nature. And this is manifest all ways. And with and as the identity of value, before and after, as unchanging value nature relationship to itself, as a nature of positive that is only going to be perfectly progressed. See, the range that we have control over within as our relationship to the nature, our control over the nature of positive, was this through tactically ulterior from actual, original, before criminal foreign influences revealed campus martius nature of value nature relationship to itself, as a correlation nature, as a relationship to ground as positive, used for correlation for what is active body of value, fact treatments, as value as nature, and progressive treatments. So we have different types of currency manipulations and stuff like that, trying to adapt to where value nature systems were set up to be blamed, needing to blame how they don't reach out to everybody on others. And because we have a breaching method that was already facilitated before our founders' births. So this is what the cartoons are about, because is recorded that each modern nation was incapable of defending what they were raised as, formally and informally, as victim predators. But it's also recorded that if you try to explain how they're victim predators, they're also associated with identity crimes, with people in collusion with a method of getting away and forcing courts to make the wrong outcomes by not letting police reports and by them stacking databases ahead of time and stacking motivations to roles, like forging names, switching names interbranch, stacking multiple fake police reports together with different police firms from different towns, associated with a phase. They go through phases from the original one, where there was a long-term fact treatment nature breaching method that used color with the law since before our founders' birth. Then consciously, so for a long term, fact treatment nature will be blaming our others negative value nature progressions that were our cause by other. Physically, because we were forced to tactically denature relationship to nature. It's because they knew that would cause negative value nature progressions. And they knew that it would then be stacked up with built ulterior motivations and homeland premise treatment natures, fact treatment nature, breaching nature, need to blame others too, being invested to roles. Like, in other words, how Hartford was set up, the home styles, completely by the fact treatment nature slavery of white and black. How they are recorded, each branch of government and all private, worse than criminally incompetent. In other words, what the hell, I forgot what it said. In other words, we have fact treatment nature racketeering influence and corrupt organization act. Another law is the name of a statute for organized crime. So in other words, statute, like with the law, where they're going to discern organized crime as with its criminal insidiousness natures and acts, like wrongdoers, and like natures like wrongdoers, and like acts like predicate acts, which are crimes facilitated by criminal enterprises, which are interstate and or internation, and in this case internation, which is not complicated. It's just this, and it's not just that was extensive. What complicates it was it's still everyone's invested with uncharged internation maintained, on-off space maintained, invested for other reasons and interests, all collusion, blaming on other and other the real causes of criminally foreign influence, premise treatments, inter-science, like with English. So they're obfuscating the identity of the existence is an identity of nature, identity of progression. Existence is an identity of progression. That is true always. Is scientifically observable. The extent of it is also recorded, blocked by the sciences, and that's also recorded, maintained consciously. Each age of fact treatment nature maintained consciously, sabotaged correlation nature, Trinity and Trinity's value nature relationship to itself, which is important distinction, because this is how you teach about what's going to cause positive or negative value nature progressions. This is how you teach about ratiocination. Not a doctor. We'll record it originally, and still we have doctors with natures of methods of crime recorded. And see, they've been getting away with it because how courts are recorded tactically there, here, and through nations, like with psychology tied to courts. They're told not to speak medical information. They're using psychology to forge names, stack information, not let people speak, and then pretend things are real in the background with the issues that they're separating, without, with all kinds of rule crimes, attaching people to fake words with that, tricks, just like magic, courts, like tricks, because we have investigators. In other words, they were raised with roles, with witness fabrications, with motivations to it, or are cultivated through and as roles with a base originally propagated for and as needs to cover up life progressions beyond just immediate formal database illusion stacking and physical delusions, but with areas, and that was in engineering before the formal sciences. Then they took people through formal sciences already as criminal insidious nature tools, as fact treatment nature. That's what they were. In other words, so when I say fact treatment nature racket, I'm talking about organized crime method, a breaching method, racketeering method, using color. Had nothing to do with prejudice. This is because this is also consciously, because we are our value as a nature, our identity, individually grouped together and progressively and inherently, because that's gaining value too. That's what English is revealed to teach, A through Z, not simultaneous. Excuse me. I mean, simultaneously, distinctly, not distinctly. Connected. This is not just about life and death, the top of the Z, bottom of the Z. This is about what forces value here to gain as evolution, the top of the Z pointing back towards A, the cycle of life coming here, or the bottom of the Z, force away, Lethe of Hades, force-based nature transfer. Nature being the identity of space and its relationship to itself. We have identities because everything is in demonstration of the identity of space. Why would it have death, people ask? Because it's relationship to, if we're going to gain the value here, or we're going to, the more where Lethe of Hades has value, the more inherent nature of volume is pushed away from Earth. In other words, the more inherent nature of the volume of the complete nature of the identity of space becomes other places, rather than what is the phenomenon of what had Earth in the perfect has Earth in the perfect spot for life. See, but we're in a value nature systems that are worse than consciously lying to themselves and others in every nation as victim predators, blaming the real causes of negative value nature progressions, natures and acts on others, and simultaneously while as fake care positions, and simultaneously within as defenses of that, with as natures of that, to and as roles within as the nature of the propagated base. But that can't see. King's Oz, even Queens miss how that is played. Each age, person, grouped together sequentially, progressively. Sabotaged Trinity nature through a crime method that's way worse than just database illusion stacking, but that's a key part of it. Because, in other words, it's directing illusions and it's putting class placements with types of databases, like a Christine Bedard, a John Mayano, Eric Oliveri, Eric Jensen, all recorded and confessed involved with courts, with crimes with kids through time, and with their roles with class places. They also have people with that group and tied to them who confessed and recorded them with crime roles with federal criminals, and with three of them who are co-defendants of a former director of the FBI in a 2006 case. And then there was cases tied to that leading up, and that was an ongoing case at the time of my father's death, which is also tied to their roles with people who identity crimes with police that have been forging names, pretending to know me, for switching their own names too, interbranch too. Not letting me have a response since I was a kid with the same people, because the interbranch is recorded juxtaposed with overt criminal foreign enterprise and with shared policing of stores with internation families, on off-campus relationships to CCSU, to Trinity College, with like a Tim O'Brien family, and a Rick Sanfilippo family, and a Colella family in the past, recorded and confessed with crimes with both end, not, I shouldn't say crimes, but they're connected to crimes. In other words, with the police forms, whether they communicate and stuff like that, stealing voice direct to people, the fake news, they were also, in other words, this is Sandy Hook investigators and people tied with a prison up there and stuff like that, with cliques, with the on-off campus crime methods like that too, with the identity people like I never even knew they existed in my grammar school, but they pretended other in middle school, tied to other people's confessions. Now these are people now tied to sex offender cliques with the area, interbranch tied, but they also have been using those drug cliques with the untimely deaths that brought that up. And the principal sex offender just recently sentenced. His campus brought up worse, recorded and confessed tied to the policing of it, and to a Phil Cololo that Bob Chase said was on a police report. They wouldn't let me see the police report. Tied to them, attached me to fake conversations. Tied to torture methods too, because they keep doing fact treatments out of sequence. And pretending they don't realize after database solution stacking that they're not letting report it too. Then they have, so they're doing the in court stacking illusions sequence shifts with tied to a proven one in the Ninth Circuit in the Trade Center attack context, which is Ninth Circuit's right next to it in Trade Center in Manhattan in the Trade Center attack. And these are federal criminals, so there was a proven sequence shift. Papers have been brought in on time, proven, and time-stamped. But they were time-stamped to appear late before the panel of judges that day, which the defendants and people that were associated with us. Well, I was with the plaintiff. Influence to roles with sins, and in the context and leading up to that, predicate acts like mail crimes, mail fraud, like fake conversations with me and with doctors they forged the names of, and with ones that also fake conversations with me, like a Lethe family, pretended that I had conversations with them or any other person about police surveillance equipment, which I had no conversation with anyone because they forged names and they had complete fake conversations with me. There's a Brendan Lethe, and his father's that name too. I don't know how many of them. But they have women in their family also with the hospital involved with drug crimes and with recorded ties to the rest of the crimes with the child sex offender cliques and the mother of one. And you know, doctors with hospitals and stuff like that associated. Because they have a right to force people, if they were legal about it, if they were honest. See, but they were recorded not honest criminal to check someone for psychological evaluation. See, I got them because I knew if I raised my voice, in the context of my father's death also, they were recorded with a pattern of criminality with kids. Also tied to them pretending I had conversations about agencies and about police surveillance equipment. Because they knew that I was going to tell on the past and new neighbors recorded and confessed involved with their untimely deaths, but the strangers that they make do confessions every year of my life connected to the same cliques, because then they have to pretend they know me, only in context they can't admit. And it doesn't seem like, you know, why would someone tell confessions like that to someone they don't know at all? You know what I'm saying? Up front, right up at front. Because they're designing things to be interpreted wrong in the past. Because the doctors with the sex offenders, drug crimes, identity crimes, you know, they're also recorded largely insidious stuff, breaking houses, roles, and stuff like that. With you know, so they want to have debate about things, but I'm not trying to debate about what they're telling. Each people confessed and recorded this separately, not knowing what they're recording and confessing. Just because someone's lying to me, doesn't mean they didn't record truth. And then they're even trying to pretend there are even girls that implied and demonstrated they were directed to record fake things in sequence shifts because they stack illusions. Because this is how agencies and their family members are in collusion with foreign and with on-off campuses relationships like training of police and stuff like that being exploited through a breaching method originally, instead keeping lie, progression, cover-up natures, what they didn't realize they were going to end up doing or having to do because they're just tools. The same way they were per blaming slavery on others and on themselves. No one would do that without the torture method that was against our fact treatment nature. That was also they tricked and hurt our agencies to share torture treatments. You know, our value as a nature. Fact treatment as a value is as in nature. Everything else is an ulterior fact treatment nature system. So it's one thing to say that, okay, that's what are we going to do? But it's a total another where each modern nation failed the obligations to discern how fact treatment nature per reality has obligations to say to demonstrate how the system never reached out to everyone. How those zoning laws were recorded criminally for and influenced slavery rolls before our founders were born. How our agencies worst and failed and exploited failing to explain how our founders were attached to database illusion stacking racket roles and sensibilities only let realized states and areas of opinion natures. Criminally foreign influence training, education, tactically maintain her each individual group together progressively and sequentially as a clear body as a trinity nature, as correlation nature. When you it's that much pseudoscience, you even entertain anybody, the color with the law. But in other words, what we blame it on is the breaching method, which is a method that knew our values, our branches would be standing value, because they were revealed by nature itself already to as a perfection. And the ancients revealed, a positive or negative value nature progressions are caused by our relationship to the value of the correlation natures, progression, as the Campus Marci is criminally re-engineered since some ancient times. It just reminds. Nature will continue to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And these were our criminal enterprises, recorded, juxtaposed, facilitated, orchestrated, and used consciously as one that needs to pretend with smiles and stuff like that they know their evil is just about, because they're all sharing, needing to pretend their credibility when they're not, together as a fake identity side, as fakes on and off campuses, space nature, crime roles. English is revealed to teach about space nature, every part of it finite, together grouped, sequentially, progressively. So existence is an identity of